It's over, PlayStation Bros. We lost. In a sudden move that came out of nowhere, Sony have announced that they are ceasing disc production from 2028 and onwards. So any new games releasing for PlayStation consoles will no longer feature discs and will be only be purchasable through the PlayStation Store. Now this move comes at a sudden shock, in all honesty, because I figured the company that would have done this first was Microsoft, because they've been the ones pushing the all digital future since the Xbox One. But lo and behold, we have Sony right here presenting it loudly and proudly that discs are no longer going to be a thing for 2028 and onward. Now, this is a blog post that they made detailing their decision and what's going to happen going forward. In a response to shifting trends and consumer preferences, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. So, yeah, like I said earlier, just either the PlayStation Store or they're probably going to just send out codes to stores, to like regular retail stores. As consumer preferences and broader entertainment industries continue to shift from physical to digital, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will discontinue starting January 2028. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital format only. This transition has no impact on games that are already released or will be releasing prior to January 2028. So enjoy those discs, because this and next year are going to be the last year you're going to get discs at all. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adopt to consumer trends, as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. This transition will enable us to align more closely with how our community prefers to access and play games today. Now, in this section, they are not wrong. Like I think I seen a study, I think posted up a couple months ago, saying that um the split between digital and physical was incredibly high. So like 10% were physical owners, meanwhile 90% were all just digital. But whether or not but I'm not sure what that study is regarding to. Like it could be like either free to play games or what. But that's all what the study mentioned. Let's see here. We will continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation and how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether it's at retailers or PlayStation Store. We remain committed to delivering a world-class experience to our fans, and we welcome your continued support. All right, and that is it. That is all the information they have just given us. What Sony have just done is just eliminated the disc market, a secondhand market, and that is not good. Look, in consoles, you're very limited on how you can get your games. Either you get it through that console specific store or through discs. Either that be at full price at retailers or secondhand at discounted at like things like GameStop or just other shops that sell games secondhand. Like what Sony are doing are just eliminating the discs entirely, and that creates like a large power vacuum of Sony can just take advantage of the consumer. Since there are no discs to get lower price games, be prepared to have games be either higher price or get very terrible discounts even after they're released, like even after years they're released. Now then, this action Sony has done has essentially killed any reason to get a PlayStation 6, because if they're just moving to an all digital format, that's just going to push more people to PC. And it's strange that they also left PC, even though they're definitely going to get less players due to definitely overpriced hardware and no physical games. But that's just my speculation. So but here's the thing though. What's being said is only discs. It has no mention that the PS6 or future Sony consoles will not have a disc drive. As reported by Tom Henderson last year in Insider Gaming, there have been two SKUs that have been found out in the place for the PlayStation 6. And one of them is an all digital, and one of them is an all as a disc version as well. So I'm guessing that one's just being. So I'm guessing that they're just creating the same thing what they did with the PS5, and they're selling the disc drive as an add-on for the option to play your old PS4 and PS5 games. Because doing. I don't see Sony having a way to convert your physical discs into digital media. Like for instance, this is what Microsoft is doing now. So in a recent rumor report, Microsoft are finding ways to convert your discs into digital versions. So I'm guessing it's either going to be like if you stick in your Xbox disc and your Xbox Series X, it's gonna automatically download a digital version of that game. Though unfortunately, it is just a reported rumor, so we don't know what's gonna happen. But what we do know is that this generation will be the last generation of discs, and that the next generation all digital, baby. So better get used to bad sales, being locked onto one ecosystem, and paid online. Well, paid online is not new, but it still sucks that it's happening for consoles. Oh, and that's not the worst news of it all. Anybody here raise their hand up for dynamic pricing? Well, I'm not. As reported on by another insider, Sony are now testing dynamic pricing. So let's say I've seen a comparison I've seen an example of this. Imagine if Stellar Blade was $23 here, but in another country it's double that. Like that is not good. Sony are facing multiple lawsuits for essentially having a monopoly on their own store, which is essentially, yeah, that is what's happening. They control their own store, and so they can set the prices. I really hope Sony lose all of these lawsuits. Now, unfortunately, this is not the worst news to come. This is not just the worst news to come out today. Earlier, we also got some other bad news regarding the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita store. Now, this one is not as bad, but it's still pretty bad. An update on PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita. Changes start this year in select markets, following by global changes. In 2027, after nearly 2 decades of supporting the PlayStation 3 console, we wanted to let you know that we will be closing the PlayStation Store on PS3 and on PS Vita. PlayStation Store on PS3 will close in select markets starting this year, followed by global closures of PS3 and PS Vita next year. That means new content purchases will no longer be possible once the PlayStation Store closes on these devices. To ease the transition, players will be able to download previously purchased content after the closing date for the foreseeable future. Until eventually Sony starts, deleting it from your own store, like they're doing with the movies that you bought for your PS4. As the PlayStation Store continues to evolve to support modern commerce systems, including updated payment processing standards, PS3 and PS Vita will no longer be able to support these updates at the level required. As a result, we will need to close down the PlayStation Store on these devices in the time frame as follows. Here they list off some countries that the PS Store on the 3 and the Vita will close. I'm guessing these are going first because these countries had the lowest sales of PS3. Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua. The PlayStation Store on PS3 will start closing on August 26th, 2026. Additional Latin countries and Middle Eastern countries, the PlayStation Store on PS3 will close on late 2026. And in all other countries, the PlayStation Store on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita will close in 2027. Now, it doesn't sit in July 2027. Now here's the thing. This is not the first time they try to close it. Back in 2021, they announced that they were closing the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita store. Now, while they did close the PSP store, the PS3 and PS Vita were still alive, and they were given a good 6 years. six more extra years, which is, you know, not bad, but still, it's very unfortunate that these are closing because there's definitely software here that are still locked down to these systems that you cannot play unless you're emulating them. And even then, emulation really isn't that good on some of these games because half the time they'll crash or won't even boot up. We know this may be disappointing to PS3 and PS Vita store holders, PS Vita players who hold a special place in their hearts for this generation of gaming. PS3 and PS Vita represent an important era in our PlayStation history, so that was not an easy decision for us to make. As we continue to expand the PlayStation experience on newer devices, the most of our users are playing today. We need to focus on resources on delivering the best gaming experiences on these platforms as we look towards the future. To amaze our players, we want to give you a heartfelt thanks for ongoing passions and support, which has helped inspire us to shape PlayStation to what it is today. We're excited for the future ahead as we continue to push the boundaries of play. We look forward to having you on this journey with us as we explore new game worlds and new adventures that have yet to come. Now here's the thing. This sucks because you cannot play these games on modern consoles. It would alleviate the pain more if I could play my PS1, PS2 and PS3 discs on my PS5. But Sony are not going to do that. They would rather remake the game and resell it back to you. This is affects me personally. I never owned a PS3. I do own a Vita, but you know, most people that own a Vita nowadays don't ever open the store and get the games, you know, a more high sales way. But here's the thing: we did get we did get almost more than a decade's worth of extra time with it. Like I mentioned before, they did try closing this back in 2020 2021. While they did close the PSP store, PS3 and PS Vita are getting at least one more extra year before they officially close. And so altogether, they had another extra 6 years. Now Sony are the last ones to close their store. Xbox already closed the 360 store. Nintendo definitely closed the Wii store a long time ago, and closed the Wii U and 3DS store and DS store. So Sony giving this an extra couple years was a good thing, but you know it still sucks at the end of the day because there's still lots of games on this that if you don't own the physical version, or if you don't ever wanna, you know, like modify your console, you're essentially just locked out of everything. Well, major update as I was making this video. So I was postponing uploading this video for a day or two to make sure Sony gives us a little bit more information. And here they posted up a story of what's gonna happen to their disc manufacturer in Austria. That they produced over 600,000 physical discs per day, and it seems that Sony are gonna convert it into an entirely different thing. And it seems to have been a plan a long seems to be this seems to have been a plan and a long time coming. All right, Sony has already started repurposing its lone PlayStation disc factory, and the body of physical gaming isn't even cold. The last remaining factory where Sony makes its physical discs is already being repurchased just days after the company announced it was ceasing physical game disc production. According to OLF Salzburg, a national Austrian outlet, the odd 300 employees at Sony Thalago, sorry if I mispronounced that, production plant will all keep their jobs in the wake of this, which is good news. Yeah, at least they're not firing all these productions. They will be retained to create micro lenses rather than physical discs, which is sad. Optical micro lenses, for what it's worth, are a key component used in managing power consumption and bandwidth bottlenecks, and are used in headsets and other devices that require precise light control. So you can see why the electronics giant like Sony will need them across its business. The plant produced over 600,000 discs per day. According to the OLF Salzburg, This figure is expected to decrease significantly as Sony moves away from physical disc production. Dietmar Tanzer, the CEO of Sony DADC, the Sony company that makes the discs, provided the outlet with more insight. He claims that with this shift by Sony, the factory's up and coming orders are a mere 10% of what they usually are, which makes the retraining a no-brainer. Sony has been planning to end disc manufacturing for some time. According to the company management who spoke to OLF Salzburg, 30 million euros was invested into new technology to create microlenses, which will become a new business area, according to Sony DADC head Marcus Strelbill. Sorry if I mispronounced that. As The Verge points out, the factory in Thalalgo, sorry again if I mispronounced that, appears to be the last remaining disc manufacturer plant for Sony. It has been producing them. It produced them in the United States previously, but the New Jersey plant was shuttered in 2021. As such, the ball is already rolling for a true death physical gaming on PlayStation. While the body isn't even cold, with the factory being repurposed, there will no longer be any need to produce PlayStation discs present around the world. Sony is the only company to be able to create these discs. It's not as though another company can pick up the mantle. So it's a piece of another tragic news, and this week's stuff full of it. Sony also announced the end of support for the PS3 and PS Vita store, a double whammy gut punch. Yep. Okay. Now here's the update I was waiting for to see why they were doing this. So Sony are gonna slow down this production very significantly in order to turn that factory into something that creates micro lenses. Now I'm not sure what this entails for Sony. I'm not sure if they're gonna create more factories to create other components. But all we do know is that there's gonna be no more discs, and Sony are literally the only ones that can create these discs. I don't see either Microsoft, Google, or any other big company picking up the mantle to create physical discs, because they all seem to also want to be moving to the all digital future, and that's very unfortunate for the consumer. We lose. We lose a secondhand market that we can get games cheaper on, and we're gonna have to be locked down to their ecosystems. Now again on PC this is not an issue because there's like multiple stores where you can get cheaper keys, but on console it was two ways, either discs or digital, but now going 2028 and onward it's all gonna be all digital. So don't expect any good sales. Don't expect nothing. Don't expect any more physical discs, and that is very tragic. But what do you all think about all this? Let me know down in the comments. Slop Larper out.